our today's topic is the difference between chemical synapse and electrical synapse. But before that, you should know what do you mean by synapse. Synapse, it is the junction in between the two neurons, and neuron plays a very important role in the transmission of the impulse. Okay, so let us study what is the difference between chemical synapse and electrical synapse. Here I have drawn a very small diagram. This is presynaptic neuron. This is postsynaptic neuron. Here also I have drawn the same diagram. Here, as the name itself indicates that chemical synapse means chemicals are present in the form of neurotransmitters. If you see or observe the gap which is present, which is called as synaptic cleft. In case of chemical synapse, this synaptic cleft, it is approximately 10 to 20 nanometer. But in case of electrical synapse, they are very close to each other. They means the two neurons, they are present very close to each other. Approximately 0.2 nanometer gap is present. Second difference, the conduction of impulse in case of chemical synapse is in the form of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters, now here these rounded structures are present at the end of axon, and these rounded structures are called as synaptic vesicles. Inside this synaptic vesicle, these neurotransmitters are present, but here which carry the impulse. But here the conduction of impulse is in the form of charge or potential. Current is passed from one neuron to another neuron. Synaptic vesicles are present. Just now I told in case of chemical synapse, here there are no any synaptic vesicles because here chemicals are not required. Mitochondria, they are numerous at the end of the axon in case of chemical synapse. But in case of electrical synapse, the mitochondria, they are few in number. Now why it is like that? Mitochondria, they are related with the energy. Here more energy is required. Why more energy is required? Because this synaptic vesicles inside which neurotransmitters are present, which are having message. These neurotransmitter has to bind with the presynaptic neuron. Calcium channels are present which has to open. These neurotransmitters, they are released in that space. After that, they have to bind with the receptors present on postsynaptic neuron. So, it takes the time. Okay, so definitely energy is required. For all these things, energy is required. But here, as the current has to pass from one neuron to another neuron, very less energy is required, and that's why here more mitochondria are present and here less mitochondria they are present. Postsynaptic membrane, it has receptors, chemoreceptors. For what? To identify that neurotransmitter. But here no chemoreceptors are present on postsynaptic neuron. Here the transmission of impulse is very slow, and here the transmission of impulse, it is very fast. The reason is it takes time for chemicals so that it comes from one end of the axon and it enters in the space. From space it has to bind with the receptor. So definitely it requires time. In case of chemical synapse, the transmission of impulse is slow as compared to electrical synapse. Now come to next point. In case of chemical synapse, the transmission is unidirectional, and in case of electrical synapse, the transmission is unidirectional also and it is bidirectional also. Now why it is like that? Because in case of chemical synapse, the receptors are present on the another neuron, dendrites of another neuron. Here axon end chemicals they are released, and towards the dendrite end receptors are present. So always the impulse is in one direction. But here It is in the form of, it is means the impulse is in the form of current. So it can flow in one direction also and it can flow in reverse direction also. So it is bidirectional. Let's study about the speed of the nerve impulse. Now the speed of the nerve impulse, it is decided by, or it depends on the two things. One, the type of the neuron, and second, the thickness or the diameter of the neuron or nerve fiber. Let us come to this side. We know that there are two types of neuron. One is called as myelinated or medullated neuron and another is called as non-myelinated or non-medullated neuron. Here myelinated means myelin sheath which is present around the axon, and here there is no myelinated sheath. That's why it is called as non-myelinated. In case of myelinated neuron, the speed of the nerve impulse is very fast because the impulse it travels from one node of Ranvier to another node of Ranvier. Again from this node of Ranvier to third node of Ranvier. Now what is node of Ranvier? The gaps which are present in between the sheath. Here sheath is present, but this sheath is not continuous. It is interrupted. That interrupted portion is called as node of Ranvier. So here directly the impulse it jumps from one node of Ranvier to another node of Ranvier. Such type of impulses, carry of the impulse, is called as saltatory conduction of impulse. But here it takes time in case of non-myelinated neuron. Here the thickness or the diameter of nerve fiber, if the nerve is more thicker, then the rate of conduction is very fast due to less resistance. So this is all about the speed of nerve impulse.